your science lesson. Yes, today it's Wednesday, the 3rd of March 2021, and this is your last science lesson if you're doing this remote learning. But it's not your last science lesson ever, no, because next week and next Wednesday, yep, it'll be science again. But at least you will be in school doing it. Woohoo! Okay, here we go. So today we're going to be identifying different methods of seed dispersal. Okay, so we've been learning all about plants, we've been learning about flowers, we've been learning about fertilization, and of course the end result of fertilization in a plant is a seed. And of course that seed needs to get away, almost if you like has to be born, to be able to go off, plant itself, and grow as its own plant. So we're going to find out about how plants basically get rid of the kids. How do they get rid of the seeds? How do they get rid of them so it can carry on growing? So, first thing we're going to do is have a think about our learning powers. Resilience, because you've just got to get through a morning of science with me. Independence, because, well, you're doing this home alone. And because there's a plant here in growth mindset, and we're learning all about plants, I just figured growth mindset would be a good idea. Although, of course, not in the strictest meaning. Growth mindset is all about being positive and believing in what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do. Not just going, I don't get it, and giving up. No, growth mindset says, you know what? This might be a bit harder, but I'm going to work harder to understand it. So today, here are our wealths. For bronze, you need to be able to identify, and I should have put recall, the main methods of seed dispersal. Okay, there's a few methods of seed dispersal, and I would like you to be able to know all of them. Silver, I want you to explain which plants use which method when they disperse their seeds. Gold, I want you to identify and explain. Just move those up slightly so they're in line. Correctly identify and explain all the methods of seed dispersal. And challenge, I would like you to see if you can write a little paragraph, it only needs to be a couple of sentences, thinking about which seed dispersal method is the most effective and why. Okay, so you're almost going to take your pick from all of the ones that you learned about today and decide, well, which one do I think is going to be the best? Okay, but before anything else, memory quiz, total recall time. So I want you to pause here and I would like you to see if you can tell me the answers or write down in your book the answers to these questions. Have a little go. What type of food will give you energy and turns to sugar if you don't burn it off? Oh, look at that. Sorry about that. If you don't burn it off. Okay. In the autumn term, we were looking at the bones. So what's the spine and what does it protect? And you need to think of from this term, 3 things that a plant needs to grow. And there's up to 5, but you just need to think of 3. And there's the 3 really obvious ones, so hopefully you'll get that. So pause here if you want to try and get the answers written down to this in your book. Away you go. Okay, answers to the memory quiz. The food that will give you energy, the food type, it is of course carbohydrates. Okay, so it's carbohydrates, so stuff that you get from potatoes, starch foods, rice, pasta, and so on. And if you don't burn it off, it does turn to sugar and fat in your body. The job of the spine, well, it's basically to make you upright, okay? It gives your body structure and support, and the thing that it protects is the spinal cord, and that's the nerve. It's like this nerve it's like plugged into the base of your brain, and it runs all the way down your back, and your spinal cord, your bones of the spinal cord protect it. Okay, or the spine itself, the bones of the spine protect that cord. So it's very, very important. Your spine is an incredibly important bone. or set of bones. Most of your bones are important, really, because they all make your body work. But the spine especially is important. Okay, and 3 things a plant needs to grow: water, air, and nutrients. Sunlight, light, loads of them, 5 things, but you only had to think of 3. So there you go, well done. Okie dokie, so we're going to do a quick quiz. This is all about how flowers and how they work. So we're going to do this quiz now. So I'm going to just tap on my link and we will go to play from start. This is called 3 strikes and you're out. Now the way this works is simply you each time you make a mistake you lose a life. So put out 3 fingers on your hand. You can do this at home really easily, don't worry. And then you lose a life each time you get a question wrong. All you have to do, although the questions aren't shown as A or B, you need to choose A or B. A is the choice on the left, B is the choice on the right, okay? So, you've only got 2 possible answers, one on the left, one on the right. And instead of standing on one side of the room or the other like we would in school, you can do this on your own quite easily by literally choosing A or B. A is on the left, B is on the right. And you just literally, on a scrap piece of paper, write down your answer. You do not need to do this in your book. Let's have a go at the first one. So there are 15 questions. Away we go. Flowers. Do they A, store a plant's food, or B, contain a plant's reproductive parts? Stamen, carpel, and all of that. Is it A, this one, or B, this one? And the answer is B. Right. Reproduction in plants means making nectar, that's your A, or B, making new plants. Write that down, A or B, what do you think? Making nectar or making new plants? And the answer is B, making new plants. Number 3, most flowers contain both male and female parts in A, or is it B, brightly coloured leaves? What do you think, A or B? You should know that one. It's A. Good. Number 4, the male part in the flower are called, or the male parts in the flower are called, is it the stamens or the petals? Is it A, stamens, or B, petals? And of course the answer is A, stamens. So, what do these stamens make? Do they make food in A, or do they B, make pollen? A or B? And it is B. They make the pollen. And that pollen is key to making more seeds. Right, so the female part of a flower has a stalk called a style, which holds up the what? The stigma or the ovary? Is it A, the stigma, excuse me, or B, the ovary? Okay, is it A or B? A or B? Is it A or B, or is it B or A? Which is it? It's A, the stigma. And that's the arrows pointing to it here. Look. Da-da-da-da. There you go. Right, so that holds up. The style holds up the part called the stigma. Right, number 7. Now the stigma, just they're showing it to you again so you don't forget, is often what? Sticky, A, or B, dry. Think about the pollen, think about where it needs to go, think about how it's got to stay there. It is, of course, sticky, because otherwise the pollen can't stick to it. And actually you can see the pollen, it's coated in it here, look, and that will then brush off from another plant which has been transported over maybe by a bee, and it just sticks in there, travels down through the stigma and gets to the ovule, and it makes the new seeds. Right, 8. The sticky stigma traps what? Water droplets, A, or B, pollen grains that have brushed off visiting insects. Oops, you've got to get this one right because I've kind of already told you. And of course it's B. Brilliant. Number 9, below the stigma and the style there is an ovary. These 3 female parts altogether are called A, the carpel, or B, the fruit. Okay, so those parts all together are called, is it A, the carpel, or B, the fruit? Get your answer down, kiddos. It's A, the carpel. Number 10. The petals are brightly coloured to do what? A, look lovely to us humans, or B, attract insects and other creatures. You know this. It's gotta be A or B. Write it down. B! Correct, well done. Number 11. Flowers also make a sugary liquid that provides food for insects. This liquid is called... If you're an insect, you love this stuff. Is it A, the nectar, or B, the syrup? Now, I know I love B, so I don't think it can be that. No, it's A, the nectar. Okay, so there you go. That liquid is called nectar, and the insects love it. Number 12. Creatures visit flowers to suck up nectar. While they're there, pollen from the stamens brushes off onto their bodies. When they later visit a different flower, does one of these two things happen? Is it A, some pollen grains stick to the new flower's stigma, or B, they will decide which flower has the best nectar? That's obvious, isn't it? A or B? Write it down. What do you think? The answer is A. Of course it is. Number 13, when pollen is transferred from one flower to another, it is called what? Insectation or pollination? Is it insectation? I giggled at the A option, which means it surely got to be the B option. Surely? Surely. Yes, phew. Imagine if it had been insectation. I really wouldn't understand science anymore. Right, here we go, 2 more. Number 14. After a flower has been pollinated, the pollen joins with an egg in the ovary. This is called what? A, fertilization, or B, blossoming? After a flower has been pollinated, the pollen joins with the egg in the ovary, and this is called what? Fertilization or blossoming? A or B? The answer is A. Of course, it's fertilization, which means, and this leads us perfectly into our lesson today, after fertilization, see the journey we've taken here. What happens? A, more petals grow on the flower, or B, the flower dies and seeds begin to form. What do you think? A or B? A, more petals grow on the flower, or B, the flower dies and seeds begin to form? And the answer is B. Okay, so that process of fertilization, the pollen working its way down the stigma into the ovary area, and that mixes together, that will make a new seed. And when the flower dies, seeds begin to form. So well done if you got all of those right and you kept all your lives. It wasn't as hard as you thought, and especially because I did give you some nice clues. Okay, so you've become experts for today's lesson. So the main part of today's lesson is all about seed dispersal. This is a very important part of the process that keeps plants from becoming extinct. But before we do that, based on that quiz and everything we've been doing these last few weeks, we're going to remember the key facts about plants by completing these sentences on the next slide coming up and adding in the missing word. Just copy these sentences on the next slide into your book and use the word bank shown to fill the gap. So, here's your sentences. Move this out of your way. What I want you to do, copy these into your book. The key vocab, all the words you need to go in these sentences are down in the box. So press pause here, get this written neatly into your book, and then you can have a brain break. So once you've done this, have a brain break, and then we'll carry on with the rest of the lesson. All right, so press pause here, and away you go. Hurrah! Hopefully you've done that, and hopefully you've had a brain break, because now it's time to continue about finding out about the different ways a seed can be dispersed. Let's watch the video. And we'll ignore the advert.
thing a new plant needs to start growing. The moment a seed starts to grow is called germination. Some people plant seeds in pots or in gardens to germinate. Plants in the wild have many different ways of scattering their seeds. This is called dispersal. The wind disperses lots of seeds that are light or can catch the breeze, but only some find a good spot to germinate. Some plants use water to disperse seeds that float. These seeds can be carried downstream to new germination spots. Some seeds grow, safely protected in fruit. When animals or birds eat the fruit, they also swallow the seeds. So when that happens, the seed is dropped somewhere new. Some seeds get tangled or stuck in fur or feathers, then fall off later in a different place. Seeds are dispersed in amazingly different ways, so the next generation of plants can grow and flourish.
Brilliant. Okie dokie, so that's that one. So, that told you about the different ways that seeds can be dispersed, and we're going to go over these types of seed dispersal in a bit more detail. So, once the seeds are fully formed, that was the fertilization process, the plant needs to disperse them. This means the plant needs to move or transport the seeds away from the parent plant from which it came in some ways so they don't all try to grow in the same place. There are lots of different ways that seeds can be dispersed. The wind. If ever you've seen a sycamore tree and the helicopter seeds, you can see that they have a little lovely weight at the end, and when you throw them up in the air and they come back down, they rotate a bit like a helicopter's rotary blades. Or there's the dandelion seeds. You know, I'm sure you've picked a dandelion in your time and you've blown the seeds because it's just so much fun. Well, all you're doing is helping to spread a weed by doing that, because dandelions are a bit of a weed. However, this is so wonderfully clever, because if you look at the end of each of these things that can float through the air so easily is a seed. So this dark bit at the bottom of each part of these is a seed that can be that can germinate once it hits the ground or gets into the right conditions to germinate. Okay, so there's wind. Bursting. Some plants have pods that are full of seeds, and then like a little bomb, it just goes off, it bursts, and the seeds are then showered around the ground, sort of away from it. And in this case, this example is a Himalayan balsam seed. Okay, peas are another example of a plant bursting open to disperse its seeds. If ever you've shelled peas, the peas are actually the seed. We eat them, and they pop open, and that helps the pea plant to reproduce and to scatter its seeds. So there you go. Look at that one. This is the Himalayan balsam seed. Amazing. So that's another method, bursting. Shakers. Okay, so there are some plants that rely on being shaken to disperse their seeds. Two examples down here, the Yucca campestris seeds and the poppy seeds. Now, when poppies have produced their seeds and have finished flowering, all that's left is a long set stem and a dried seed pod. So it looks kind of dead, but it's not. These pods have small holes at the top, and they rely on the wind to shake and scatter the seeds. Okay, so it's a bit like seeds that need to be blown in the wind, but the difference being, if you look at the if you look at the dandelion head here, these are quite wispy bits. You've seen this, I'm sure, when you've blown a dandelion, and all those bits fly off. This is very different with a shaker, because this is quite a solid pod head, and basically you can squeeze that and all the seeds will come tumbling out. So the seeds are all contained in there. So there you go, that's that example. This method doesn't send the seeds very far, however, and Yucca campestris seeds also need to be shaken. So there you go, shaken not stirred. That's another one. Right, water. If ever you've seen water lilies, they grow on the water, don't they? And so, of course, they need water to transport their seeds. And you saw in the video, seeds that might fall into the water can get carried along, and then they'll just get washed up on the riverbank or on the grassy bank, and they can start to grow on the side. Water lilies live on the water, so they use the water to disperse their seeds. They make very light seeds which will float away on the river for a while, on the water for a while, then sink to the bottom of a pond to grow a new lily. And there's an example of some lily seeds. Amazing. So you see, it's very clever how plants use all these different methods. Now, palm tree seeds are very light, which helps them float. So palm tree seeds, they can just float on water and they grow on another palm tree somewhere else. Palm trees that grow by the oceans drop their seeds, which can be swept great distances by the ocean's currents. Coconuts are also well-known travellers. So if a coconut, the actual coconut is the seed, and you can crack those open and obviously eat the flesh inside. But here's a picture of all different palm tree seeds. Willow and silver birch trees often grow near water, and their seeds are very light, which enables them to float away on the water. The silver birch seed is also fluffy, which helps them to be dispersed by the wind too. So you see, some seeds may use more than one method for being able to get out of the area of its parent plant in order to grow for itself. So sometimes it might be they could use a bit of water, and then it might be a bit of wind. There's all sorts. So they're not necessarily strictly in one particular method. They could maybe use 2 or 3. And this last one, catching a ride. Love this. Look at this dog. This dog's been covered in burrs. So you see, seeds can be picked up on and travel on the fur of creatures. And in the video you saw the squirrel with all the little seeds attached to it. And when they rub them off or elsewhere, or they've travelled off, even the wind might blow them off. Those seeds can then travel and move away from their parent plant. So some plants, such as cockleburs, have developed to grow tiny hooks on their fruits, which means they can hook onto animals or people. You can brush past something and find seeds stuck to you. And eventually they drop off onto the ground. So very, very clever how all of this happens. And this is a great one. It's a mucky one, but it's a great one. Cetus Food. So some plants make tasty fruits. This encourages animals and us as people to eat the fruit. The seeds then pass through the animal unharmed. So what happens is the bird or creature that's eaten it won't digest the actual seed part. They'll just digest the fruit of that. The main fleshy part of the fruit, that will just get digested and turned ultimately into water, I suppose. But the seed survives. So when they do go for a little poop, okay, like you saw in the video, bird poo, out it comes, lands on the ground, splat, and the seed is in there, perfectly formed, goes into the ground, works its way in, and it can start its own growth journey as a new plant. Okay, and also the great thing about this method is that it ensures the seed is given nutrients to help it grow. So we've talked about this, about manure is a source of fertiliser. Okay, so bird poo might sound a bit gross, but actually it's all healthy stuff really. It helps the seed to grow in the ground. So wonderful. So what types of fruits can you think of that are eaten by animals and people with a seed inside? Wonder if you can think of any. Blackberries, strawberries. I can't think of any more. You can think of more. And drop and roll. Now, September, October time, conker season. Love conkers. They're so brilliant. When they fall to the ground, they roll. Okay, because they're in this casing. Okay, and that cracks open when it hits the ground, and the fruit inside then rolls away from the tree. You can tell which horse chestnuts in the trees are ripe because their casings have already begun to split before they drop. Okay, so there you go. Can't beat a bit of drop and roll. That's another way that the seeds can move around and start somewhere new to grow. So here's a picture showing all of them. They can be dispersed by these different methods of seed dispersal. In the water, in the wind, dropping and rolling, bursting, shaking, eating, and being carried on the fur of an animal or a human's clothes. So there you go. Those are the different methods of seed dispersal. So, your final activity about how do different seeds get dispersed. What you're going to do in a minute, on the next slide, there are going to be pictures of different seeds. What you're going to do is think about what you've learnt and decide how you think each seed might get dispersed. So you can always scroll back through the video to probably that picture, just to remind you, or quickly write those down. Okay, maybe pause here and write a list of the different seed dispersal methods. And then look at these pictures. Now what you want to do is organise your page into 5 columns. Okay, or you could divide it into quarters and then divide one of the quarters into a half, and that will give you 5 boxes. Just one box will be 2 boxes, and it won't be quite as big as the other 3 boxes, but you get my meaning. Now, you are allowed to put seeds into more than one box if you think it could use more than one method to be dispersed, okay? But have a little look. Here we go. So, you have got these 12 seeds. How do you think they could be dispersed? We've learned about some of them. Okay, we've learnt about some of them already, so you've got the answers. But look at the pictures. Have a little think about how they may work. Think about what likes to have an acorn. What little animal likes eating an acorn? Anyway, here's your 5 headings that you need to put into your book. Here are your seeds that you need to draw a picture of into each column or box, depending on how you've organised your page. And you can decide accordingly, okay, as to where each of these seeds are going to go in terms of how they're dispersed. Eaten by animals. Anyway, I mustn't give the answers away. Have a go at that. Press pause here so that you've got a picture of, you've got all of the seeds that you need. This is also available as a download document if you need to, but I'll be honest, if you just press pause here, you don't need to do anything else. So, there you go. Press pause, on you go. And finally, the plenary. Oh no, that's the answers, can't show you that. Watch this video. This is a really amazing video. It's about another method of seed dispersal. We've already talked about it, but this is it in action. So just watch this video as your final little activity. It's nothing that you need to do. You just need to enjoy the film.
This is Yellowstone National Park in the USA. It's home to many animals, including this little bird, the Clark's nutcracker. The nutcracker eats pine nuts. Pine nuts are the seeds of pine trees. If conditions are right, they will grow into new trees. If all the seeds grew right next to the parent tree, the new plants would be too crowded to survive. This is where the nutcracker comes in. As winter approaches, it stores as much food as possible to last it until spring. The nutcracker collects pine nuts and hides them under stones. It spreads or disperses the seeds all around the park. Dispersal is the spread of seeds to new areas. A single bird will disperse almost 30,000 pine nuts over an area of 160 square kilometers. survive the harsh Yellowstone winter, the nutcracker will eat many of these seeds. Other animals will also find some of its stores. But almost 9,000 seeds will be left untouched, and these can grow into new pine trees. So although nutcrackers need pine trees to survive, pine trees need nutcrackers too, depending on them to disperse their seeds across Yellowstone.
Brilliant. Lovely little clip. So thank you very much for all your hard work. The only thing I can leave you with are the answers. So if you want to double check whether you think you put seeds into the right place, here's the answers. Catching a lift, being caught on the fur of a creature, is the horse chestnut and the burdock. In the wind would be the dandelion, the poppy, the ragwort and the sycamore. Ragwort again eaten by animals. Appleseed, acorn, peas, berries, horse chestnut. Water, the Himalayan balsam, which we heard about anyway, coconut, and exploding, peas, poppy, Himalayan balsam. So, there you go. Hope you've enjoyed that lesson. Thank you for all your hard work, and I will see you in school for the next science lesson. Well, if you're in Tregarrick. Otherwise, take care, and all the best. Well done.